Well, good afternoon, which is kind of strange to be saying here, but that's not something we generally ever say here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very special episode of the Political Spotlight. I am your host, Kristopher H. Bilbrey, and I'm all kind of a little discombobulated because it's the middle of the afternoon, but we are here. We're running on all cylinders, and we're going to have a great show for you. As I told you earlier in the week, we wanted way back when the news came out about the big lawsuit going on in the state of Indiana to fight to do away with what we believe here is a very unconstitutional election ballot access law, something that we've been fighting and griping about since its inception in 2022. So when all of this came about, we were saying, hey, wait a minute, who is this guy that is fighting this? And of course, for those of you that may not know, that gentleman is John Rust, and we're going to be bringing him on here in just a few minutes and talking with Mr. Rust. Rust is a Hoosier that wants to be your Republican candidate to run and allow the citizens of Indiana to decide who they want to go on to the November election and have a chance at becoming one of the next senators for the great state of Indiana to go to Washington, D.C. and do some work there. Of course, the big challenger here is obviously Jim Banks. Both of these guys are looking to take on, as well as there are some others on the other side that are looking to take over for Mike Braun, who is apparently giving the seat up to try and be the governor of Indiana. That's left for another day. But this episode is focusing on John Rust. And for those of you out there that have heard information about him, have read different things, there's a lot out there to be said about Mr. Rust. And we thought instead of allowing someone else to tell us what they thought about him, we would bring him on, we would talk to him, we would get our own type of thought, and then allow you guys to have access to him as well, and make up your own minds. So this is a very special Saturday show. For those of you that are watching live with us, thank you. Thank you for being here. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Rumble or wherever else you're watching, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are here on YouTube, please hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. That way you get notifications when we go live at different times other than the Sunday through Thursday at 9 p.m. or when we drop shorts or other static content, which we've been doing a lot lately. So it's important to subscribe and hit that bell. Also, comment in the comment chat box if you're watching live. This is a very interactive show. And if you're watching on repeat, or when I feel like most people would probably be watching this, which is later this evening and or on repeat, then you can comment in the comment box below. And most importantly, please share the show with everyone you know. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here it's episode 133. The show is Who is John Rust? Why don't we let the voters of Indiana decide? We're going to talk about all of that and talk about everything that is going on. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring him up with us and we'll see what is going. I know Joe Black. That would have been a great. That would have been a great title for the show. He even gave us a good title. Brandon was off doing his thing, so we maybe were a little lacking in the title, but hopefully we will give it to you in content. So without further ado, here is Mr. Rust. Hello, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me, Kristopher.
I guess they're already griping. They said this should have been called the Expose.
Yes, I love that.
Yes. So I might as well jump right into it. For those that might not know information about you, who are you and why are we talking to you?
Okay, I am a chicken farmer from Seymour, Indiana. Just in January of this year, I decided to run for the United States Senate. I've worked all my life in my family's business, helping feed 15 million people a day. We're in the egg business. We're in it big. And my family has worked our entire lives with, we have over 1,200 employees here in Indiana, all of us together working to bring low-cost food to the to everyone across the United States. And so I think I have an experience, that I can bring to Washington on what works for fighting inflation. When my dad started selling eggs on the Indianapolis farmers market in 1948 and 49, he was getting 50 cents a dozen. If you adjust that for inflation today, that would be $6. So the retail price at Walmart and Aldi, I just checked the last few days, is $2.03 at Walmart and it's $1.98, I believe, at Aldi. It's ticking up a little bit because of bird flu, and I'll get into that later if you like. But if you adjust the price for inflation, eggs are 1/3 the price of what they were in around 1950 when my dad started the business on the Indianapolis farmers market up there. Sure. So and that's what brought that about was large scale farming. These large chicken farms. If you've driven by our farms in Pulaski County, White County, Newton County, Court Acres here by Seymour, Gin Acres near North Vernon, all these farms have 1 to 2 million chickens each. They're incredibly large operations, and they produce eggs at an extremely low price. And it's what Joe just said. It's the same with milk. That's what modern agriculture has brought. And so if you go into the grocery store, eggs and milk are one of the cheapest things you can buy. If you look at what the prices are for potato chips and meat and everything else, it's very high. Eggs are still an incredible value. You just look at what Starbucks. You go there and pay $6 for a cup of coffee. You can get 3 dozen eggs for that at Walmart. So that's what I think I bring. It's not specific to just eggs. It's that common sense and that business sense of working and knowing what works. It's not always easy being in business. During COVID, for instance, the government shut down so much of our business. Through universities, colleges, schools closed, restaurants closed. We lost so much money during COVID, and so I know firsthand what the government can do to business and to individuals by overreacting on things. And I think that's part of it. It's part of the reason I got into that, because we have to just have common sense, and I think that's lacking with a lot of politicians today because they don't have any real world experience. And that's what I think I bring to the table. So I got into this. I started thinking about it in January, started calling around, and I very quickly over the next few months found out I was doing something that's forbidden in Indiana. And that's running for political office if you're not a political insider. They had that specific rule that, they call it the 2 primary rule. But, the reality is 81% of Hoosiers didn't know about that. I certainly didn't. And so they use that rule and say, oh, of course you can't run for political office. You didn't do this or you didn't do that. It was just a way of protecting political insiders from the consequences of government overreach, in my opinion, during COVID. I think that's right when they passed that law, was right after the COVID stuff in 2021. And so I got into this not knowing about this law and thinking, oh, I'm going to be welcome into the Republican Party because I think I have a stellar story, with my, the business success, my, just my work ethic and what I bring to the table. Because, I have some views that are a lot different than a lot of people think someone like me should have. And I think that's just something I bring different to the table. And so I got into this, but I found out, no, you can't. So I actually had to sue to get on the ballot, and I won, thanks to the court case. And I won that right for 81% of Hoosier voters. And so that's very important. That's a huge number. Only 19% of Hoosier voters were eligible to run for public office in the state of Indiana. And that's, to my opinion, not acceptable. That's government leaders saying, we get to choose your leaders. It should never be up to the people. And, you know, you may disagree with me. You may not like eggs, whatever. Great. Fantastic. That's your right. You know, vote for Jim Banks. Go for it. But give me a shot. At least let me be able to run. And I met that. And so we got that law thrown out, and I am going to be signing up next week for, with my ballot petitions to get on the ballot, actually, you know, with the Secretary of State's office in Indianapolis. And we have blown away the Jim Banks campaign on the number of ballot petitions. What I found is, and this is very interesting, we've had a very easy time of getting people coming up. If I just park my campaign bus somewhere, people come up and knock on the door saying, hey, we want to sign the ballot petition. We are so sick of what the establishment is doing to Hoosiers. They are sick of it. And so they say, let me sign because I want to make sure you're on the ballot. And so we're going to have, I think we have over 11,600 verified signatures so far. The Jim Banks campaign has about 9,000. So we're way over the Jim Banks campaign on just signatures.
That's amazing. I want to apologize there for a second. I don't know what that was. We had a little bit of a glitch there, but you guys kept on rolling, so I appreciate that, and I apologize about that. But I was able to monitor what you guys were saying there, and I very much agree that all of the craziness with that ballot access came in after COVID, and that's the other thing. The other hurdle is the ballot access with the signatures. And that is something that we tell people all of the time. If they're looking to run, you know, you always need to plan to get far more than what they actually tell you need. And we were talking about that a little bit beforehand. So it's good to hear that you guys are ticking along there. When is the actual deadline? When do you have to have all of that in?
I think it's Thursday.
Okay.
But we'll be in probably Monday or Tuesday. We're just, we're getting everything. It's just we're swamped with the number of petition signatures, and so we're getting everything, all the paperwork in order. Okay. And because we have way more than anyone thought we would have, and it's just blown away because you know, people are so fed up with, you know, Jim Banks and the political establishment in Indiana, and then this get into this whole thing with what Diego did on Thursday, where he endorsed Jim Banks from the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, that was very, very odd. And I know, obviously, you know, you're in the middle of this legal issue, so there's going to be some things you're not going to be able to talk about with that. But if we can just, you know, just a little bit. So right now we are up against it with, you know, the deadlines for once the deadline to file and all of that comes through, then there will be the deadline to either withdraw or the deadline for challenges and whatnot. And we're obviously waiting for all of this to be heard. And it's, I think, reprehensible what the Secretary of State's office is doing with that. I think it's crazy that what you said happened with the endorsement of Banks. I think that's just crazy. So how are you guys?
Right. You know, and I have no problem with any public, you know, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Absolutely. But just don't do it from your government funded office.
That's the problem.
And that's, you know, this is a big reason why I'm running. It's one of the major reasons, you know, because I'm very successful in what I've done. So this is huge. When I go to Washington, I will be able to work day one for Hoosiers. I will not be sitting on that phone dialing for dollars. Right. You know, for the defense contractors and whoever, you know, working for them. I will be listening, you know, I'll be calling you up. I'm going to say, hey, when are you going to have me on your show? Yeah. Because, you know, I want to work for Hoosiers. I do, you know, I have made this very clear. And so people are saying, well, why aren't you out actively getting donations? I will absolutely take donations, but you're not going to hear me call you up and ask for something because I don't want to be beholden to someone. Sure. I want to go there and say, if you're a Hoosier, you have as much access to my Senate office as anyone else. I will not turn anyone away just because you donated or not. And I don't want people to think, oh, I have to donate so I can go get my grievance heard. No, I want to hear your grievance. That's why I'm going to Washington, to fight for you, not for the political establishment. And that's why they are scared to death of me and just working their butts off, trying to keep me off the ballot. You know, I absolutely understand they're going to go after all my signatures. And so that's why we work so hard to get so many signatures, because they will, when they go in there and start trying to challenge this signature because that address is wrong or that T is not crossed. They're going to come in there and challenge mine. I know that this is going to be a fought battle for the next several months, no doubt about it. But I am in it for the fight. I'm in this for the right reason. I'm in this because, I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing this because, I'm a Hoosier. And, I think Jim Banks, he probably started out with good intentions. But, when you end up in $1 million house in Virginia after one term, you just got to wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I like
who's he working for.
That's exactly. I heard you say here recently that, Virginia has their 2 senators, and you think
they don't need 3. Let Indiana have 2.
Right, Indiana deserves our 2. So you're talking about not being beholden to anybody, and so I guess
Except you.
Except the citizens, and that is
Right.
something that we're very concerned about here. And I guess to kind of look into that a little bit, obviously, something that's being thrown around is ties to George Soros and all of this. So
let me get that. Someone came up to church last Sunday and they said, "I hear you're a George Soros plant," and he was just laughing. I can't say I guess I can say his ass off, but I mean that is so stupid. And as this campaign unfolds, it's backfiring on Jim Banks bigly, to use a Trump term, because it's just such bullshit.
Yeah.
Can I say that on your show? I don't know.
Yeah. You're more than welcome.
I mean, a chicken farmer from Seymour, Indiana, being a George Soros plant.
Well,
I mean, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. And
I guess,
and so what they say is, well, they're paying the legal fees to get this defeated in court or whatever. No, they are not. There's a few groups that filed amicus briefs in the Indiana Supreme Court. I have no control over that. That has nothing to do with me whatsoever. I can't say yes or no. You can go out and file an amicus brief. Or a communist could file one, and then the communists are supporting John Rust. It's baloney.
Yeah,
it's just, and that what this is. The nut of this is, because he has such a terrible voting record, he has to attack me on this stupid stuff, like where my mailbox is.
Right.
My house is. I live out in the woods, and it's half mile from a county road here.
Right.
And it's 1.5 miles from my mom's house. And so I've always just shared her mailbox as my mailbox.
Sure.
And so they're saying, "Oh, you lied about where you live because your mailing address isn't where your house is." There's a lot of Hoosiers that, live in rural areas.
Sure.
Like me, that have the exact same situation. Just because you get your mail at your mom's house, it's in the same precinct. It's in the same county. It's not like, and he's saying that, and my mailbox is 1.5 miles away, and his mailbox is 580 miles away from the state of Indiana. And then he's saying mine, because it's 1.5 miles away, I'm doing something bad, and he doesn't even live in the state.
Yeah, it's kind of like don't throw rocks when you live in a glass house in Virginia.
Right. I use that.
So I just,
$1 million glass house.
Yeah. Right. So I just kind of thought that, if George Soros, planting people, that might be a concern places, but maybe they would have figured out a more conservative person to plant that person against. I mean, if you're trying to take out Jim Banks, it's not like Jim Banks is some incredibly conservative senator. I mean, there's lots of questionable issues with Banks and his voting record and the way that he looks at things. So it just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And honestly,
if there's a George Soros candidate in this race, it is Jim Banks. I'm totally serious about that. Listen to this. Right. George Soros funds prosecutors who do not prosecute crimes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is very important. Jim Banks voted for the First Step Act in 2018, which released violent criminals from prison early. For criminals who committed a crime with a gun 2 times, they get out of prison 10 years early off their prison sentence. just released blanket. Fentanyl dealers released early. Terrorists released early. Mohammed Youssef Hammoud, a terrorist for fundraiser for Hezbollah,
Yeah.
was released just in June of this year. And he's back in Lebanon right now bragging about funding Hezbollah again. And Jim Banks voted for the law that let him out. But I'm the George Soros candidate. But
Right.
Jim Banks is the one that when he visits Indiana from his house in Virginia, he's the one that says, "Oh, I'm tough on crime," but he actually votes to let the criminals out. And that that's why I'm running, because I'm just so sick of career politicians who talk out of both sides of their mouth. On May 31st of 2023, we had the $4 trillion debt ceiling vote come to Congress for a vote. Jim Banks that day spoke to WOLO Radio up in Fort Wayne and on WIBC here in Indianapolis and said, "Oh, I'm opposed to that. I'm going to vote against it." He lied through his teeth. That afternoon at 2:30 that day, he voted yes for that bill to bring it to the House floor for consideration. He voted yes for it after he said he would be opposed. Only Victoria Sparks, she is the only congressional member, voted no against bringing it to the House floor for a vote. And she is the only one that voted against it for final passage as well. Jim Banks disappeared after voting yes, after he said he would vote no. Then he disappeared. He didn't show up for the final vote.
Yeah, right.
The Senate is going to be very evenly divided for the next decade, in my opinion. If you just look at what the demographics are,
yeah,
it's going to be very evenly divided. It's going to go by 1 or 2 votes back and forth. Every vote is going to be hypercritical. You have to show up for every vote. Jim Banks, and so that's why they're so annoyed with me, because they have a candidate that will point this stuff out and not be scared to say it. Jim Banks missed a major government funding bill on November 7th this year. It's called House Resolution 847. It was a major government funding bill. He missed that. He missed the vote on impeaching Mayorkas on November 13th, that following Monday. Another major vote he skipped. We have to have, I think if you're being paid, you need to show up for the job.
Yes, sir.
And he wants a promotion.
Right.
I just look at things as a farmer, and if farmers got by with as little work as career politicians do, Congress, they go in session at noon on Tuesday, and they're out usually by noon on Thursday. That's 2 days a week they work, and you can't show up for the votes those 2 days.
Right.
And it's what I started out in the beginning of the program. You know what they're doing, and this is why I presume he missed the vote on the May 31st, is because he was dialing for dollars. He was having to call, General Dynamics, one of his campaign people that pay him, or Mitch McConnell, has maxed out to Jim Banks. All these defense contractors and whoever, they're paying his bills.
Sure.
So, and he's having to call them, to run for, perpetual reelection. He's been in Congress almost a decade. The only thing he has accomplished in that decade is getting reelected. I've been all over the 3rd district up in Fort Wayne. I've talked to people all across his district, asking what has he done for the district, and no one can think of anything other than, oh, it's his career.
Yeah.
I just saw something flash up about the egg price fixing thing. Let me get into that. That's very important.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. This is huge. Okay. We got sued by 4 corporations with a combined net worth of $400 billion. It's Kraft, it's just these mega corporations. And what they were suing us over was 2 cents of the 20 cents in a jar of mayonnaise. We were trying to get a fair price, so that we can pay our employees a fair wage. And so you say that's price gouging to try to make enough money that you can pay a fair wage? I don't think so. They say, and so what that jury found, and they said we're guilty of this, and we absolutely are guilty of this. They said we were guilty of selling eggs overseas. And you know why they say that's bad? Because if you sell eggs overseas, there will be fewer eggs to sell in the Midwest or in the United States, and so the prices will rise here. So we're going to say General Motors can't sell cars overseas? Or we're going to tell corn farmers you can't sell corn overseas? Jim Banks doesn't want, soybean farmers sell soybeans overseas. We live in a world market. We're going to try to sell eggs wherever we can for them, what we can get, because we want to be able to pay a fair wage to our employees.
Sure.
And so, we will win that lawsuit. The jury, when was that, in December? I can't remember exactly when they found that verdict, but that's being appealed and the judge hasn't ruled on it yet. And we're very confident that'll be thrown out.
Okay.
And it works out on both sides. Interestingly, we had another group of the large retail chains sue us for the same thing in just a few years earlier, and we totally won that. Because we've never done anything wrong. We have done everything in our power to have low cost eggs. We wouldn't be in business 70 years now if we were out price gouging. You don't make it in business that long doing something in farming. We're price takers. We're not price makers. It's farming. You just can't control the price like they say, oh, you can, but you can't.
Sure.
Yeah. And this is one of the it's called damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Absolutely.
In 2000 and the year 2000, our family, we had one of our feed trucks at our farm burned up by animal rights activists. They set the feed truck on fire. It was the Animal Liberation Front.
Oh, wow.
And so that got our attention, and they don't want people to eat meat. They don't want people to eat eggs. They want to force a vegan agenda. And if people want to be vegan, that's great. That's fine. Just don't force people.
Sure.
That's, I don't want to say whatever. Let people choose whatever they want. I don't like it where these groups are saying, no, you shouldn't be doing that, because they disagree with it for other people. Let people choose their own thing. So these animal welfare groups, including PETA and the Humane Society, put incredible pressure on the Kraft Foods, these big giant corporations, Walmart's, Kroger's, and said, you have to go cage free in X number of years, or we're going to start a boycott against you and, raise ruckus at shareholder meetings and say, you have to do what we want to do. So to meet that, the Walmarts and Kroger's of the world said we had to join this group called United Egg Producers and form a animal care husbandry guideline. And what that did is that increased the amount of space per chicken in every pen of chickens. So for instance, in a chicken house, in an old style chicken house, there may be 6 chickens per pen.
Okay.
And so what we would do is go in and take one chicken out, and that increases the amount of space for the 5 remaining chickens to be able to move around more freely. And, scientifically that worked out to be better for the chickens. And so we're great with that. That's fine. But when you take that one chicken out and you do that you have to do that in the whole chicken house, and the whole chicken farm, you're lowering the number of chickens laying eggs. And so the supply of eggs goes down. And so while we were doing that, because we were being told we had to do that by the Walmarts and Kroger's of the world, while we were doing that, we were adding chicken houses onto the end of the farm at great expense. We were losing money during this whole thing because we knew I frankly knew we would get sued over this, because it looks bad. But if you see what we actually did, we increased our bird numbers while we were increasing the bird space per pen, which the jury in Chicago said, oh, that's bad, you shouldn't do that, even though we had to do it to keep selling eggs to the Walmarts and Kroger's of the world, or they wouldn't buy eggs from us. We did that, but also we were adding chicken houses to the end of our farms. We increased the number of eggs we were selling exponentially. When in 2000, we had 15.7 or 15.4 million chickens. Today, we have over 21 million chickens. So we increased over 5 million the number of chickens we have during that time while we were, and you can see this. If you go by our farms, like at Monon and Newton County, wherever you see our farms, you'll see these obviously new chicken houses on the ends of the farm. And it looks different. So oh, the reason we did that is because we were increasing the cage space for our chickens inside the farm, but we also wanted to have more eggs coming through, so we wouldn't have to lay off employees, who are packing eggs and stuff like that, because they need jobs, and customers need eggs.
Right.
And so we did the right thing. It's a 100% wonderful thing what we did. And, and Jim Banks is saying that's evil and price gouging. It's absolutely, positively, patently false. And if Jim Banks says something, you can absolutely guarantee it's the opposite is the truth. Because when he goes out and attacks farmers for price gouging because we're selling eggs overseas, are we going to, like I said, are we going to ban Subaru in Lafayette from selling cars in Thailand? And they do that. It's insanity to think, oh, well, just chicken farmers, you shouldn't be able to sell eggs because we want to keep all those eggs here.
That's insane. We had another.
It's just anti-American in my opinion.
Right.
It's anti-free enterprise.
Exactly.
And that's why eggs are inexpensive today. That's why they're the best value, in my opinion, is because of the free enterprise system. It's because of capitalism.
Sure.
And that's what I want to shout. In the United States Senate, capitalism and work ethic works. Let farmers, be farmers. Government people should not be, choosing what people eat and how the production should be done. Anything, it's like what it just says there, anything the government gets involved in, they're going to screw it up.
Very true. I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Yeah.
We've got another question up here that someone had asked, and it said, can citizens of Indiana count on a vote, or where do you stand with the Equality Act?
Like the marriage equality?
It doesn't say. I would assume if Charlize is still here, if you can.
Well, I'll just talk about that.
Sure.
I happen to be, legally with a guy, and I hate identity politics, and that's not a reason to vote for me or against me. Don't get me wrong. I want people to vote on me for what's up here and what I'm going to bring to the table for what my work ethic is and all that. It has nothing to do with, my personal life. I just don't think that's a factor. But I will say this, I absolutely only believe in equal rights for all, not special rights for some. And I think what we've seen is some people try to use, any agenda to get special rights, and it shouldn't be for special rights for anyone. We're all equal under the law, in my opinion. So I would always absolutely support equality under the law for every person. No special rights.
Okay. Yeah.
If that's the right way to answer it. If I'm missing that on something else,
Yeah. She just came back and said that there's, I guess, a Equality Act floundering in the House, but okay. I think that's that. Then there was another question here from Joe who said, who is getting the ag subsidies? It seems like a lot of American farms are being bought out by foreign interest from China and Brazil.
In the meat industry, I don't know about the farm subsidies there, but what's in the egg business, there are no subsidies. We don't get $1 from the government. It's completely free enterprise, 100%. And we wouldn't have it any other way. My dad fought tooth and nail to keep they call them marketing orders, to try to regulate the supply of chickens so that all farmers would always make, X amount of dollars and never go broke. If you do that, you don't ever innovate. And that's why egg prices go up, and that's why eggs are so expensive in Canada. They've had marketing orders there since the 1970s, and they pay a lot more for eggs in Canada than what we do here.
Okay. Sure.
But as far as grain farming, and there are subsidies for that kind of thing, and that's very necessary. Grain farming is extremely you just run at a loss a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to have ethanol. That's why ethanol gets subsidized, because we have to have abundant fuel. And when you start taking parts of the fuel equation out, gas prices will just go higher and higher. And so I 100% support ethanol production. I think that's a big, big, big deal.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, as far as political career moving forward from here, if you are, I mean, from everything I'm seeing, I fully believe that you will be on the ballot, and I fully support you being on the ballot, as well as anyone else being on the ballot, and the voters of Indiana or whatever state being able to vote their will. So if you are then chosen to move on to November, and you are then senator of Indiana, do you have political aspirations past that? I mean, I know that we're kind of getting the cart before the horse, but is this something that you're setting up as maybe a latter half career after the farming, or where, you know?
No, I'm doing 2 terms and I'm getting out.
Okay.
You know, I've been to Washington, D.C. I don't want to spend the rest of my life there. I like Indiana, and I won't apologize for that. And I will live in Indiana. When I'm a senator, I will come back every weekend that I possibly can, because I don't want to be there. I love living. I'm looking out at my window now at my woods here in Indiana. I just love it. So 2 terms. You know, George Washington did 2 terms as our first president, and I think every politician should abide by that. You know, I may be the greatest United States senator in history, but after 2 terms, replay this, find this video, come back there and throw it up in my face and say, you said 2 terms, and slap me around until I get the hell out of there. Because, you know, I'm 56 years old. 2 terms, I'll be 67 or something like that. I just don't believe in making the Senate a retirement home. And, you know, with, you know, Mitch McConnell, he did some good stuff in the past. Don't get me wrong, but he's way past his freshness date, you know, the sell-by date, you know.
Sell-by date.
Farming. And, you know, and after 2 terms, someone else will come, you know, up in Indiana and replace me, and that's what I want. I just don't think no person, you know, knows everything. I think it's good to cycle through. That's why I believe in term limits, and I will absolutely positively support and vote for term limits. And I'm going to live by term limits, whether the law ever passes or not, just because, for one, here's people, I can see where some career politicians don't want term limits because they get their quote unquote seniority, and they get their power, you know, when they're 99 years old after they've been in the House or the Senate for 30,000 years. I will have power day one. Very important point, because I am not beholden to anyone, and that's why they are so scared of me. It's a huge deal. You know, the United States Senate, you know, I will have probably the deciding vote on Supreme Court justices, federal court judges, on which laws gets passed. It is going to be very evenly divided. So I'm going to have incredible power day one. So I don't need to sit in the Senate and rot until I'm 90 years old, you know, to get power down the road. I'll have it from day one. If Jim Banks gets in there, it's a different story. He's going to be, you know, he's Mitch McConnell's stooge. And so he's going to have to do whatever, you know, that Washington insiders tell him he has to do. And so he won't have the power I will. I will have incredible power to always do the right thing. And that's why they're scared of me. That's why they're, you know, also I don't mind saying it. They're scared shitless of me. And that's why they're just working so hard to throw me off the ballot.
If he would be working half as hard at being a senator as what he's working, and we see it in a lot of other candidates too, up and down the ballot. If they would work half as hard at, you know, trying to make sure that the public can't get to them, or make sure that, you know, other candidates can't take them on, as opposed to doing their damn job, you know, they would be doing so much better. But that's something I guess we can't hope for, I guess. But
well, that's why we have to have term limits. And and you know, I'm going to have power, and so what will I do with that power?
Sure.
There's number one thing I want to get done is get the border wall built from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. What really, really, really annoys me about these politicians is, oh, I'm for border security. I'm going to vote, you know, X billions of dollars to add 50 miles of the border this year. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's wrong. You have to build the entire wall from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. You can't, it's like leaving it what they're doing now. That's like a chain link fence to keep out mosquitoes. You know, it has to be full and complete. And they say, oh, the cost is nothing compared to what the cost of illegal immigration has been. I just saw a figure where I couldn't believe it. It's $350 billion a year is what illegal immigration is costing the United States now every year. You know what the cost of the border wall was when Donald Trump wanted to build it in 2017 was? $21 billion. And the Republicans in Congress were the ones that opposed him on that.
Yeah.
Less than 25% of House Republicans in 2017 and 2018 supported building the border wall. You know, Jim Banks, you know, he was at that point, he was calling for an influx of immigration to Indiana. He certainly got it. We've had 8 million illegals enter the United States since Jim Banks openly called for an influx of immigration. 8 million. And that's more than the population of Indiana. And it's shocking to me because the number that affects is everyone's pay.
Right.
Your salary, your pay. And so pay has not kept up with inflation because now we're having to pay for all these benefits for all the illegals, you know, through, you know, food stamp, you know, SNAP and WIC and all that. And, you know, people working are paying for that. And you're paying for that when you go to Walmart and everything is so expensive, you know. So I'm talking about eggs being $2 a dozen. They're going up, but it's not because of anything we're doing. It's just because the dollar is worth less and less because we're giving so much more away to people that aren't working. And so I'm always 100% going to be, you know, the senator for working Hoosiers. That's just where I'm at. You know, I grew up working hard my whole life. I started gathering eggs, you know, when I was 10 years old in the blizzard. I have the exact date. It was January 24th, 1978. There was a big blizzard came through. And, you know, it was so bad, you know, my family had to grab all of us kids, you know, to go out and work in the chicken houses because no one could make it to the farms. And so you know, we'd spent all night, you know, going through and unthawing water lines and gathering eggs the next day, you know, just working continuously, you know, during those horrible blizzard years. So that's another subject if you want to get into. So back then they were talking about, you know, the coming ice age.
Yeah.
And then it was global warming. Now it's climate change. So I saw something on electric cars. I wanted to give my little thoughts on that. If you want an electric car, great. But I don't think your neighbor working next door at your house should have to subsidize your electric car. I think it's, you know, let the individual, let the free market work that out. I don't like government leaders saying, oh no, we're going to go electric. You know, people will choose what's right. The market will figure it out. The market will, you know, look what Elon Musk has done with Tesla. He will very quickly figure out how to make a successful electric car that people want to buy for performance, not because, you know, of subsidies or whatever. Let the free market work it out.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, climate change. I don't believe in the United States raising our energy prices while China and India are still building coal plants. You know, we shouldn't be disarming and having more expensive electricity than China if we're competing against China. China is still building 2 new coal-powered plants every week. Every week, 2 new coal-powered plants, and then we're here, you know, doing everything we can, you know, to, you know, do green energy. Green energy is great if it makes sense.
Sure.
You know, my family, we have a chicken farm in Hawaii. We're half owners of it. That farm has solar panels on the roofs. There, it makes sense. It's cheaper for us to produce the electricity on our solar panels on the farm than it is from buying it on the grid there. And so that's us doing that on our own. We didn't need the government telling us to do it or whatever. That was, you know, just free enterprise and the free market at work, you know, doing something that is quote unquote green. I think that's what you have to let happen. You have to let common sense happen. You can't just say, oh no, we're all going to make, you know, I have a kind of an issue with the state of Indiana now. Suddenly, you know, the state of Indiana is in the battery building business. So we're going to go out and, you know, subsidized by billions of dollars, companies come in and produce batteries. And is there going to be a market for that? I think we have to let the market work that out first. Don't let the government be the pickers or the arbiters of who are successful in life. In my opinion, you let the individual's work ethic, or, by their mind, let them, figure out their life and their success. It shouldn't be the government picking winners and losers.
Yeah. Talking in that same line there, I know where we are here in Delaware County, Indiana, solar has been a big issue. I know all throughout East Central Indiana, solar and wind has been a big issue. As a farmer, let me get back here to this question. As a farmer, are you utilizing solar energy to reduce costs? And if so, do you find it cost effective? And if so, or if not, what are your thoughts on the push for solar and green energy here in the state of Indiana?
In Indiana, no, not yet. In Hawaii, where there's perfect weather, it makes sense. In Indiana, look how many cloudy days we've had the last.
Yeah, right.
It's a sunny, beautiful day today, but it's been pretty dreary for the last couple weeks. And don't get me wrong, I kind of like that. I was talking to someone at the courthouse the other day, and I said it was like in the opening scene of Hoosiers, with Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Driving down the country roads on a cloudy, misty day. That's what Indiana's like now, and I think that's beautiful. So don't get me wrong, I love that part. I'm not saying it's all bad, because I like it. I live here, so I love it. But so solar, if it makes sense, yes, but it shouldn't be something that we should be forcing on people. Or I don't think, my neighbor should be paying for me to be putting solar panels on my house if they don't work. I think you have to let the market bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you look at my core philosophy and how I'm going to vote on stuff, it's always going to be, towards what's best for the individual. I just don't believe in collectivism. I don't believe in the government picking winners and losers. I believe in, everything my family's done, and that's, hard work and just, accomplishing what we did without the government, saying, here, do this, or this is a subsidy, do that. We never got that. And that's what's going to color how I vote in Congress, because it's just where I'm at, and that's my life experience. I started working in 1978 part-time. I was still, I was 10 years old, but I mean, I've worked all my life. And,
Sure.
I went to IU, and I've sold eggs in New York City, and I've just, I've been all over the country, and, we have farms in 7 states. And so I spent a lot of time traveling around, Midwest, Iowa, Missouri, Georgia, Illinois. We have a farm in North Carolina, driving around to all these places. So I know, I think what the real world is. And these career politicians, to them, the real world to them is a fancy dinner, in some restaurant in Georgetown, in DC. Sure. And for me, the real world is always going to be the checkout at Walmart. It always 100% will be. And that's why I want to come back to Indiana every weekend if I'm elected Senate, because I want to know what the prices are on stuff. I'm always curious, what eggs are and what milk is and hamburger.
Sure. Absolutely. Before we wind down here, and I appreciate your time, I do want to ask, we've got another question that came in here. What's your thought on support? What's your thought on, or do you support expanded Social Security and Medicare coverage and protection for seniors?
Okay, this is a big question, and I want to be 100% on record for saying this. I am absolutely positively opposed to any cuts in Social Security. I am absolutely opposed to raising the age for retirement for collecting Social Security benefits. My opponent, Jim Banks, as chairman of the Republican Study Group in Congress, called for the raising of the age for Social Security eligibility. I am absolutely positively opposed to that. I do not believe Social Security is entitlement. I believe that is something you work for. You pay for that with your taxes you earned. And so I just do not believe in cutting that. We talk about all these benefits we give for the illegals coming across. The people working and paying the taxes should get what they were promised, in my opinion. They've paid that in all their lives. And just by fixing the border wall, you're going to solve the Social Security problem. If we actually build the border wall, income's going to come up. Wages are going to go up. We're going to have to pay more, and that's a great thing, because when your wages go up, your Social Security tax comes up with that. That's not raising any rates. That's just, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And people say, oh, Social Security is going to defund in 10 years. No, it won't if wages go up. We have to get wages up. And that's why I am 100% for building the border wall. And these politicians are not. They talk about it, but there is no way in hell, if Jim Banks gets in the United States Senate, a full border wall will ever be built, because they want to make it a political issue. They want to say, oh, I'm for border security. We added 50 miles this year. That's bullshit. You have to build it from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean, and you have to do it now. You can't wait. And all this other stuff is pure political crap. And that's why I'm running. I am so sick of these politicians talking about, all these issues. If they build the border wall, they can't campaign on it.
Sure.
But we're the ones paying the price for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of in connection with that last question, would you support eliminating the salary cap on income for Social Security?
What do you support eliminating this? I think we're going to have to. I think you have to address that with inflation.
Okay.
That's the short answer on that.
Okay. Sure. Well, before we get to your last thoughts, let me ask you, we have your social media feeds and your website up here. We've been putting that up on the screen. People can, get in contact with you and check out what you're doing, see where you're going to be in events, we've got your website and Facebook. Go ahead.
I saw Joe Black made a comment. I'm going to invest in ladders.
Yep. Sure.
I was on the border, and I spent a lot of time talking to Border Patrol agents. They want the wall built completely.
Okay.
People will still be, like he said, they may be able to get a ladder over one section somewhere. But if the wall is built full and complete, they will be able to fine tune and get in and take care of where they are coming in. The problem now is there are hundreds and hundreds of miles where there is no border. So you don't need a ladder. There's hundreds of miles where it's only a 3-foot high barbed wire fence and some rails. Seriously.
Yeah.
Hundreds of miles. There's nothing keeping anyone out. And other than cows, that's the only thing that our southern border would keep out. That's when I was down there.
Right.
So you have to have the physical wall, and the people on the Border Patrol agents say we have to have the wall. It has to be complete. And if you do that, we can actually keep control of the numbers. And this is a big distinction. This is why I want the wall built, because I hope Donald Trump gets in, he will, immediately put the laws back in force that are on the books now to, turn people back. They don't now. We have to have the wall so that, after 4 more years of Donald Trump, the next president comes in, doesn't just undo what Donald Trump did, and then we'll be back 4 years from now in the same situation we're in today. That's why you have to have the full border wall to protect, our interests from whoever's president, in 4 to 8 years. And that's why we're paying the price today. Donald Trump did a great job when he was president. Absolutely. But, Joe Biden undid all that.
Right.
And so, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was.
No. You're fine. You're fine. Last question here, and then we'll get to what I was getting ready to say there a minute ago. With regard to the farmers signing up their land, which is what we've got going on around here, I've been told that farmers should be able to do what they want with their land, and I'm definitely all in favor of property rights and being able to do what you want with your land. As far, I guess this is kind of a. What is your thought on that? Obviously, with farmers,
my dad had these. When we built our chicken farms, they weren't always popular with our neighbors.
Yeah.
It's not in my backyard. But these massive chicken farms, it's not, if you don't want your backyard, I understand that. But that is why you have low cost food today. So food has to be grown somewhere. It's my opinion, if a farmer wants to put up solar panels on their land, let them.
We have a massive battle going on around here, and there's even more going on than that. But yeah, it's a real hot button issue here in Delaware County currently going on right now. And there's a lot of other stuff going into it than just that issue. But Yeah, I can.
And just the bigger picture on that,
Yeah.
what I don't like about the solar panels is that's all a game for the subsidies. It's not really because they're effective for producing electricity. It's all a game just for the carbon credits and all this stuff. And so it's not a real gain for, what the real goal is on it, which should be electric production. So if the solar panels are going to pay for themselves, like on our farm in Hawaii, and they're on the roofs, and I don't think they're hurting anyone, great, let them do it.
Yeah. All right. So, as I was getting ready to say, we've got your social media accounts up here where people can follow you and get hooked up with you to see where you're going to be and connect with you and your team. Is there you have anything big coming up? Anything that people need to know? Obviously, we're watching the court case, and besides that, any last thoughts or anything that you want to say that we haven't said?
Come join me at the courthouse, February 12th at the Indiana State House. I don't know the time yet, but I would love for people to come and, whether you're for me or against me, come and listen to Democracy in Action, and let's see if the Indiana Supreme Court will uphold the law that, or find against me and try to throw me off the ballot, that keeps 81% of Hoosiers from running for political office. In the grand scheme of things, the most important thing Indiana facing today right now is that court case, where 81% of Hoosiers were effectively banned from running for political office. That's crazy. No matter what your politics are, to try to keep people off the ballot if they met the threshold for the ballot petitions, which I clearly, I got way more than Jim Banks. So, I beat him
Sure
on that. And so, they're just trying to do anything they can to keep me off the ballot because I'm going to win. Because I think people are so sick of these career politicians that just lie through their teeth when they're in Indiana and then vote exactly the opposite when they're back in DC.
And that court date is February 12th.
February 12th.
February 12th, correct. I think I'm going to try to come down for that because that's a big thing. So, well, very good.
Time, I'll let you know, because I would love for anyone to come up, and it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely will. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your time today, sitting down and talking to us kind of in a longer format. I definitely appreciate that. And we'll be following what goes on with the court case and what goes on as this election continues to meander towards the election days. Appreciate you for taking the time, and we'll have to have you back on at a later date.
I would love that. And I would love to, talk more eggs. And if you want to do something just on eggs, I would love to do that. I will always, I love being on. Thank you so much for having me.
What's your favorite egg, favorite way to have an egg? What is
right
that?
Right now, I go back and forth. I'll do scrambled eggs for about a year, and then I do over easy for about a year.
Over easy. I'm always over easy. Over easy or omelet for me is the way to go. But yeah. Well, thank you very much.
I like my yolks a little bit runny. I'm sorry. I think.
Yes. I'm the same way. So, well, very good. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. John Rust. He is a Hoosier candidate looking to get on the ballot. And here, this is what's important to know. It doesn't matter if you like him, you don't like him, you support him, you don't support him, you're Republican or you're Democrat. One thing that people need to know is he is fighting a fight, in my opinion, for all Hoosiers, and that is this fight for ballot access. And what's going on currently with that, ladies and gentlemen, whether he becomes senator, doesn't become senator, whether you support him or don't, I do believe that we all need to be giving him a nod and saying thank you for that for him and his attorneys. And I tell you, the judge that issued the ruling in the initial case, he just absolutely did an amazing thing, and his thoughts and his order in that ruling, the ruling that came down, was absolutely remarkable. And they're doing really good work, because this is just an absolutely wildly unconstitutional thing that's going on. What's happening with ballot access and what the politicians at the local level, the state level, and the federal level are doing, specifically here in the state of Indiana, just absolutely out of control. So I definitely thank him for that. And I thank all of you for watching on this very special Saturday episode of the Political Spotlight. We're a little early. Please share the show around so that folks will be able to see it, and they know it will be up for replay as soon as this show ends, and therefore people can watch it in the normal 9 o'clock time slot and beyond. You guys can share the link around and help spread the word. So thank you guys for watching. We will not be on tonight, other than this will just be available for replay. And then we will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, our regular time slot. We have a lot of big and important shows coming up, folks, as we march closer to the 12 noon deadline on Friday, February 9th for the local and state races for them to the filing period to close. And then we go through the week of who's going to be challenged, who's not going to be challenged. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow's show, for those specifically interested in what's going on in Delaware County, I've got some big news and big questions about the Delaware County commissioners, specifically James King. I think that there's been some concerning things that we need to be looking at, and there are questions that the citizens of Delaware County should have. Please share the show with everyone you know. Remember to comment in the comments section below, and we will see you back here tomorrow, Sunday, the 4th of February at 9 p.m. Eastern. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend, and God bless. We'll see you then. Goodbye. You know it, Stumblefoot. Marlise, I'll text you here in a minute.